Thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you today. I'm Damon Sladen. I have the honor to serve as the Vice President for Human Resources and Organizational Effectiveness, surrounded by a great host of folks on our HROE team. Glad to work with staff council, glad to be working with the different staff councils across the university, our friends in Cutter, McAllen, Galveston, all points in between. We've enjoyed the opportunities to be more holistic in our approach of considering the different rules, SAPs, regulations, and how they apply to our team collectively across our community. So with that, I guess, Sarah, if we can start with the slideshow, we'll get this party started. Okay, I will start here, and Andy introduced himself. Laura is representing our CISQ team on behalf of Mary. What we wanted to get through today is talking a lot about the background of AWL, why we are where we are at this point, the path that it has taken to get us to this point. Also give Andy the opportunity to give us a little bit greater detail about which system regulations have been impacted, some of the key points of highlights that indicate what has been changed at the system level on the regulation, and then also talk about what the A&M SAP has changed to reflect not only the system regulation, but a lot of what has happened with our conversations with consultants and the task force that was tasked with functioning on what AWL may look like in the future. And then last, we'll touch on what the web-based guide that we've developed as far as guidelines, what tools are available, resources through our web, through our website, and also what Workday implementation strategies will be put into place the middle of this month. So next slide, please. Or next two slides. And one more, Sarah. So the purpose of an alternate work location change in our policy, this is taken right from what our SAP indicates as our purpose, and obviously I'll read it, but what I want to emphasize is that we talk about a highly collaborative workplace because of us being a land grant institution, us having the opportunities to impact students, faculty, staff that we interact with on an ongoing basis. Also to stay market competitive, to enhance the recruitment retention, some operational efficiencies as they impact mainly facilities, space. But that is why we're wanting to endeavor and now have endorsed a new approach to alternate work location. And the caveat obviously is that alternate work location does not compromise work performance, productivity, or our pursuit of the mission. And one of the questions that's been asked of us is, what does a successful program mean? What does it look like? How can this even come to fruition? Because a lot of folks continue to have a mindset that, well, it worked well in COVID, it works well for me now, and everyone else is doing it, so it should work for us here. While a lot of those are true, we feel like there's a means whereby two things can make this thing successful. Consistency and accountability. And what I want to also point out is that when we look at the regulation, it's the flexible work arrangement regulation, and then our SAP is the alternate work location SAP that affiliates with the flexible work arrangement. So there's a key word in each of the flexible work arrangement and alternate work location, right? And the W stands for work, okay? A lot of the questions that we've seen, and there were some questions that we monitored after our first forum a couple of weeks ago. A lot of the assumptions maybe continue to be about, does this replace dependent care? Is this, if I need to travel and continue to work, is that leave or is it not? And I want to make sure that we're all on the same level playing field, is that the alternate work location means that we're identifying jobs and positions that are conducive to a arrangement to work at a remote location. And there are many benefits that are affiliated with us being able to be more flexible. But what I wanted to set the stage and the mindset for a successful program for both managers, supervisors, and employees is that we're talking about an alternate work location. And if there may be some opportunities for us to enhance what it looks like as far as flexibility and the length of time, is it a day, is it 5 days, is it my job or someone else's job? We want to make sure that the baseline is formed on the fact that we're talking about a location that is an extension of your workplace where you can continue to be productive and represent the university in its best light. So with that said, success also comes with consistency. Andy will point out that there have been some changes at the system level that is codified in the regulation that talks about the highest level of an organization must approve these alternate work location requests. To me, that means that allows a dean, a department manager, supervisors, as well as a vice president or a division head to set the stage for what it looks like to be consistent across that entire organization. There may be jobs that we share universally across the A&M system that we need to make sure that we're consistently applying what it looks like to be on site as a work location, and then what variables of those may also be considered eligible for a alternate or flexible work arrangement. So consistency at the highest level, we're wanting to make sure that these things are approved and reviewed consistently across the organization and approved at the highest level. Also want to make sure that everyone understands that this is a position function driven system, so that if you happen to be a customer facing in a customer facing role, but in the last few years, because of COVID and because carryover from COVID, you've been able to have a flexible work arrangement. If that position meets the definition that Andy will go over here in a few minutes as one that does not qualify for an alternate work location, then it's position driven. It's not because you're a bad person or you didn't do something right. It's driven by the position. So for consistency and success, we want to make sure that we all understand that it's about work, it's about the position function, and then also to hone in on what will make it consistent is training. We have pointed to, and Laura may touch on this, or me or Andy, the resources that are available through our web-based guide point to LinkedIn learning courses that have been prescribed as necessary for an individual as both a manager and an employee to review and be well aware of as a condition of being eligible for an alternate work location arrangement. So between the common theme between us being able to look at the position function and then everyone complying with the training recommendations, we need to make sure that is a way that we can have a successful program. So I mentioned consistency. The other thing I mentioned for a successful program is accountability. Again, this is tied back to what my position expectations are. Also, there's a condition of an employee's performance. So if I have a position that's conducive to work at an alternate work location, however, my performance would not bolster me to be able to operate in that capacity, then managers, supervisors, department heads, deans, division heads, and vice presidents have that ability to look at performance as a qualifying factor for that particular individual that has a job that is eligible, and then consider those. Also, for accountability, we want to make sure that individuals are reviewing the frequently asked questions that are available on our website. We will continue to grow and develop those as our approach to implementing this changes over a period of time. We may need to tweak a thing here or make something a little bit more clear there. But FAQs are one that we can make sure that we're all being held accountable and singing from the same sheet of music to ensure that we're doing what's best for the university as it approaches to having a successful AWL. Last thing I'll mention is it's peer driven. Some of the questions that we saw seem to indicate that is there a means whereby we can report someone that may not be using their AWL time wisely and maybe shedding a bad light on what I may qualify for as a school or give a negative perception to the university. So while we don't have a formal means whereby a peer, I guess could put in an ethics point or some other means, we want this to be a trust-based program so that we trust our employees to be successful and to continue to be productive, even at a location that isn't in their office. So those are some measures I think went a long way to answer a lot of the questions that we had received previously. But I just wanted to touch on those few things before we go to the next slide. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Just a quick overview of the timeline that has gone into play. There were some consultants that were engaged by the university leadership back in February. What they did is look at our existing policy. And when they say policy, basically what it was our SAP, any rule, regulation that influenced that SAP, and then also what our request process and approval process had been. So the three main objectives they recommended were to define what the benefit would be by role. What is the nature of a job? Do we consider like hybrid or partial or fully remote? Are there cost-saving measures that can be associated? So define what the benefit will be to the organization as we incorporate these measures. And then also what's the process? You know, I think before the form was 6 or 7 pages and it had lots of check boxes and you had to turn in a blood sample. I'm just kidding, we didn't have to do that, but there was a long, arduous process to request approval, but yet then there wasn't a definition of, you know, what a boundary was or how do I access my employees? Does this apply across the board? What if there's a performance measure? So these are some things that we're hoping to have incorporated in the new plan. And the last thing that's also indicative of the systems perspective on what's important is to provide training that's relevant both to the hybrid, the partial remote, and the fully remote to ensure this consistency and the success of the program. And so those are some things that the consultants recommended. Those have influenced the development of our SAP and even the system regulation. This task force that was formed back in June had members of A&M and A&M system leadership, which were promoting the feedback from the constituency groups across the organizations. There had been some lessons learned. Many of you may have participated in a lessons learned survey through COVID that the provost office had led, and we had representation from the provost office on this team so that we can incorporate some of those ideas. Of course, staff council was an important member of the constituency group. And then there was various meetings since that time with the staff council, with deans, vice presidents. The first SAP was revised in October and November, capturing the feedback. And then you have seen the announcement that was sent back in early December announcing what these timelines were going to be, that we're mindful of two things. One, there will be a request and approval process through Workday. So that's a uniform way to do that. That will be approved at the highest level of that particular organization, a dean or vice president. And then two, that this process will allow us now for deans, vice presidents to be working internally with their teams, department heads, managers, supervisors, and employees to look to see which positions qualify, and then how then we can manifest an expedient means to request as of January 19th, rather than just launching the 19th and then beginning the process. So as you will see, the guide that's already available on the website has a lot of the information that's already available so that then the departments, schools, colleges, divisions, can now look at this holistically and then formulate a plan and develop that communication strategy internally. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Andy to go over regulation and SAP details.
Thank you, Damon. Next slide. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to highlight some of the key changes to the system regulation. The first one being that CEOs now must sign off on all AWLs. They can delegate that authority to a vice president or dean, but the vice president or dean does not have the authority to delegate that further. This is truly an executive level of approval. Under the old system regulation, department heads had the authority to approve AWLs. However, this is really held at a vice president or dean level, at least for Texas A&M University. System regulation explicitly defines what positions are eligible, and the converse are positions that are not eligible for AWL. In order to be eligible, a position must be computer-based. It cannot be face-to-face. It has to be largely self-directed. And 2, does not require a physical presence in the workspace. If any of those are not applicable to any given position, that position is not eligible for AWL. Training, as Damon highlighted, is a requirement. Both the employee and the supervisor must certify that they have taken the necessary training in order to participate in the AWL program. Now, the question I know is going to get posed, where do we certify that we've trained or took the certification? Do we send that to HR? We are not the training police. We are not, HR is not collecting any certificates for training, anything like that. It is largely a self-certifying type situation. However, if for any reason there's anything that gets called into question, audit purposes, vice president wants to see it, I strongly recommend keeping the documentation, any certificates or any certifications that is that you have to certify that both the supervisor and the employee have taken the necessary training. And finally, all out-of-state AWL requests. Out-of-state means the employee is no longer going to be working within the state of Texas. Regardless of what state they are going to, this will be held to a higher level of approval as well as scrutiny, i.e. the president needs to approve all out-of-state AWL requests until system can determine how they're going to address that. So for the foreseeable future, all out-of-state AWL requests will need presidential approval. Sarah, next slide. As for key provisions that changed with the university SAP, AWLs are only good for 1 year. They have to be renewed, have to be reevaluated and analyzed. They're only good for 1 year. As Damon said, an AWL is not a substitute for any or an extension of any existing leave program. If an AWL is required for a medical reason, the employee must, I can't say this enough, must go through the ADA process within HR, i.e. employee relations. The university will not reimburse travel costs or expenses associated with an AWL. If you are, regardless if you're working out of state and you are still working on an AWL, A&M will not, cannot, will not reimburse for any travel costs to and from the workplace. Eligible employees, in the SAP, it defines what an eligible employee is. And this is a staff, not a faculty SAP. This is applicable to staff only. So it's regular budget employees, at least 50% FTE. If you have a student worker and a prerequisite of holding that position is they have to be a student, they are not eligible for the AWL program. So this covers your GATs, GALs, GANTs are not eligible for AWL under this existing SAP. If the key thing is, if you are to participate in the AWL program, you must do so using an agency-owned computer or device, whether that's a laptop or a tablet or things like that. You cannot use personal equipment while remoting into your agency-owned at your desk. You must use university-owned equipment to participate in the AWL. An AWL is an extension of the office. It needs to be distraction-free. It needs to be a safe environment where you're able to perform the essential functions of the position for which you were hired to do. I can't state this enough. It needs to be another extension of your office. You cannot be, it needs to be distraction-free. If there are, not to say there can't be children or other people in the location where you're working, but you must have a dedicated place and a mechanism in which to be accessible during normal business hours. An AWL, your primary location is your office, regardless of whether you're in a partial or full remote work. Again, you need to be accessible as if you were in your office in College Station. Accessible either by Teams, phone call, email, things like this. Response time should not suffer due to the fact that a person is working from an alternate location, either part-time or full-time. That's all I have. Sorry.
All righty. So Damon made mention of the web-based guide that we have available on our website. Sarah, if you'll give me the ability, I will try my best to get out there and show you guys that.
Oh, one other thing I did, sorry.
Go ahead.
One more point while you're taking care of that. Regardless if you currently are working on an AWL currently, all requests, whether new, existing, or renewals, will need to be submitted through Workday on or about when it becomes live. So regardless if you've been working off an existing one, whether it's paper or handshake agreement, you will need to renew that through Workday.
All right, great. Thank you, Andy.
Sorry.
So, as Damon mentioned, we do have a lot of resources already available on our website for employees and managers to take advantage of. If you go to employees.tamu.edu, that is our main web page, you can either go directly to employee relations or just come on over to the search bar and type alternate, and it'll pull up this alternate work location guideline page. So as been mentioned, this will be launching in Workday. We're not going to give a specific date, but it's sometime mid-January we will be launching this. And when that does launch, everything going forward will need to be done through the Workday process. And again, Andy mentioned the ADAs. First, they go to employee relations. They will then handle the Workday process from there. So what types of AWL do we have available? Fully remote and partially remote. So a fully remote AWL will allow an employee to fulfill all their job duties from an AWL. The arrangement does not require the employee to report to the primary duty station and allows them to fully function in their role, leveraging technology to work and communicate. Now, partially means there are some on-site responsibilities and also an off-site location. Work location definitions are available here. So again, as Andy mentioned, your primary duty station is going to be whatever your university issued office or workspace is. Okay, and as we look further down this page, there are guidelines available to employees, managers, and training as well. Just take a quick peek at this. So employee AW guidelines, again, there's information on how to request an AWL. There's also an employee checklist and then employee FAQs. And again, we will be updating those FAQs as they need to be. So an employee requesting the AWL, again, must request it through Workday beginning mid-January. It is called, so in Workday, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to type in the global search bar, request a flexible work arrangement. That is what this business process is called in Workday. So you want to request it. If it comes to a point where you're ready to end that flexible work arrangement, you will be able to use the end flexible work arrangement business process. Roles and responsibilities of employees while on AWL. And then expectations for AWL. As Andy just alluded to this, that, you know, this is not to be used for working other jobs or running businesses or engaging in other activities. It truly is for you to work your normal job in a different location. Okay, and some of the questions that we've received already regarding the new AWL process are documented right here. So which staff positions are eligible? I'm going to show you in just a moment a resource we have available to take a look at. Are faculty positions eligible? Faculty are not eligible for this AWL process. Student employees, Andy covered that as well. We talked about must use university provided equipment and so forth. So again, that's all the information related to the employee. You can also come over here. There's links, jobs best suited for an AWL arrangement, tips for entering into the arrangement, work schedule. All these resources I highly recommend everybody taking a look at. Okay, so back to this. Again, there's separate guidelines for managers as well. For this to be successful, managers and employees really should take the time to invest in reviewing this information and all the resources available, as well as take the training. So here's some information for managers to make that implementation successful, along with FAQs for managers. Okay, I hope I'm not making y'all dizzy and moving too quickly. All right, so the training that is available is offered through LinkedIn. We have a list of recommended training for managers, as well as fully remote employees and partially remote employees. Once you take these courses through LinkedIn Learning, it will provide you a certificate that you completed it, or at any point down the road, if you need to go in and actually show someone, document that you did complete the training, if that's requested of you, that will be maintained in LinkedIn Learning. Any questions about the resources available on the website?
Hey, Laura, it's Damon.
Hi, Damon.
I may just, when we were on the tab for employee resources,
Okay.
just wanted to clarify that while this particular SAP and alternate work arrangement is specific for staff, there is an alternate work location arrangement SAP for faculty that's currently under review, but all questions regarding any faculty requests for an alternate work location now are continuing to be directed to the faculty affairs group. So there's a email address embedded within the FAQs, but I just wanted to clarify that there is an alternate work location SAP that's under review, but there is a process currently in play, just to clarify.
Okay, thank you. And just to tag on to that, we did opt out for faculty in the Workday process. So it can't be done in Workday at this time.
Right. But there is a means whereby they could request an alternate work location through faculty affairs.
Correct.
Gotcha.
All right, Sarah, I think that is all I need to show on the website. You want to get back into the presentation? I think there's one more slide.
I may also mention, Laura, while we're getting that last slide up, there's based on the questions that we received, some clarification on must I use my system-owned equipment at an alternate work location? The answer is yes. There is some clarifying information that is in the FAQ that discusses the use of cell phones or other tablets to access sites that are available through like your multi-factor security systems and other authorized web-based like email and those types of things. So personal devices, as we do now, we're on vacation or at home and we don't take our PC with us or have a laptop, we can still access those things. But the idea is that when we're saying that it's an extension of your work at home, then a system-owned piece of equipment is necessary for security protocols and such as that. So just thank you for another opportunity to clarify.
Right, Sarah, are we, do I need to do something from my end for you? Okay, Sarah, I've stopped sharing.
See if
Is it still not allowing you to pull it up?
Let's see if I can share mine here for the last little bit.
Yeah.
You see that?
No.
No.
And unfortunately, I don't have the slide deck. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, so Pamela just popped her head in and said she thinks that Sarah might have gotten kicked off as host. There's the problem. But Damon is going to rescue us and save the day.
Oh, that's scary.
Well, keep advancing, please. Oh, wait, there we are. Okay. So the Workday implementation, as we've mentioned, will be launched mid-January. There is a new security role that's being put in place called Chief Executive Approver. All AWL requests will go through route to the Chief Executive Approver. And per the regulations, that is the president or CEO. And for us, that is President Banks. And she has delegated that authority to vice presidents and deans. It can't be delegated below that point, though. You do not have to, if you're doing flexible work schedules, that is part of this business process that we were not really focusing on today for this, this session, but you can submit a flexible work schedule through this business process. It will not route to the Chief Executive Approver. You will receive a to-do task in Workday to update work address and it will route regardless of the answer to the questionnaire. That questionnaire, I believe, is related to, are you working inside or outside of the state of Texas? The manager will then get a message notifying them to verify the work address has been updated for remote location. And as I mentioned previously, we have opted in for this particular business process in Workday. Again, faculty are not using it at this point, but as Damon reminded us, they do have a SAP that's under review for the process. And I believe that is all that I have.
And I'm back. So thank you.
Sarah.
I think
Sorry
it
about
was
that.
retribution, and anybody that's ever been on Zoom before can appreciate my terror when I became not the host anymore and can no longer unmute or share screen, just like Damon in the beginning. So we came full circle, y'all, and just to show our humanity and your representatives and your administration, and we are so grateful for your patience while we work through our technical difficulties there. Thank you so much. I believe that you all will be able to chat to the hosts if you do have questions, but we have received some questions in advance. And since we have a little bit of time left on our schedule, I'd like to just ask a few of those, and some of which you all have already addressed in your presentation today. So thank you very much for amending the presentation and clarifying some things that were brought up on the last call. I know we get a lot of questions all of the time about, does this apply to people that have a medical issue or need an accommodation? Andy, I'm just going to let you again clarify this, because I think it's probably the top question that we get. Is this alternate work location process the correct process to go through for someone in that situation? And I'm going to let you just speak to that.
Sure. Yes. No, it is not. If it is based upon a medical condition, as that you have to go through the ADA process, which will require medical documentation to substantiate that. And we do not want medical documentation in the Workday. That's why it goes through the normal ADA process and works with my office on getting approvals, similar to prior pandemic, post-pandemic. That has been 100% consistent. Sarah, while I can, I did get a couple questions, and I figured easier to address them all right now. Is with regards to out of state. If they have employees that are currently working out of state and have been either for months or years, you do need to submit those through Workday. Please note in the request that this is a long-standing practice in citing the reason rationale in there, and we will give that the attention, or the president, vice president will give it the attention it is due. But make sure you reference whether it is a new request or it is a long-standing request and the rationale behind it when you submit it.
Fantastic. Another question that we receive quite frequently is, if I have a situation where I need to be at my house because the cable man is going to come between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And I want to ask to work for the day from my home, is an alternate work location request necessary in order to be able to do that? That's a question that we receive quite frequently. So would one of you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it, and Andy can help clean it up. But essentially, when we're talking about the alternate work location policy, we're talking about something that's ongoing, that's long-term, something that we have tools, resources, and capabilities to someone to be successful as an extension of their office. If there's an opportunity for an employee that has a job that's conducive to it, that's performance as well, and they need to be available somewhere else and still have the ability to work, WORK, while they're waiting on the repairman, then by all means, that's something that we would want them to be able to facilitate a conversation as a one-off or rare circumstance with their supervisor, just to ensure that everybody's on the same page. If it becomes something that's expected, an entitlement that's not the intention, then we may need to then look at what a formal plan may need to be through an alternate work location process in Workday.
Fantastic. Yes,
I-
that's, Andy, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I agree 100% with what Damon says. The other thing we need to keep in mind as well, this is for the employee's benefit. If there is a legitimate business need, whether there's a space issue, there's construction going on in the building, and that we don't have space, and the supervisor, department head can make a business needs reason to allow the employees to work from home, that is outside of this particular process. And it still reserves the right, for example, with the Friday before the holiday, a snow weather, inclement weather, that is not an AWL under this program. That is done as a business necessity that is separate and apart from this program. So this doesn't necessitate any business arrangements that are put in place. Sorry, David.
No, and that's great, Andy, and those business necessities would be like a short term. So
Short term, exactly. This is,
if
yes.
the air conditioner went out or something, not that we need people to share space. If you're sharing space, that's an alternate work location because there's a hybrid model or a partial model that then we could document through this process. So
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking more of the construction 2 weeks
Yeah.
time while construction's going on.
Yeah, and I think we, can appreciate that, and that gives us some parameters around what circumstance do we need to go through this process and establish an ongoing agreement versus is this a one-off or is this an extenuating business circumstance or inclement weather, that sort of thing. I think that gives staff an expectation of what the conversation should be and what sort of documentation needs to be provided in those circumstances. So thank you both very much for that. Another question that we've gotten quite frequently is the delegation has been made to the deans or vice presidents to be able to make decisions for their area as to how alternate work location will be handled. We've received a fair number of questions asking us, how will we know what the policy is from our dean or vice president?
I will say that we've had multiple conversations, at the dean's level, vice president's level, talking, even providing information as far back as August and September when we thought we were initially going to launch this with the same information that's available to everyone now in the FAQs regarding which positions are eligible, what are some helpful hints in determining whom would be eligible, what are some considerations as far as what resources look like, what does a work location at a home setting look like. So that information has been provided to the highest levels of the organization. It is our understanding and hope that by us facilitating the messaging universally and having opportunities like this to discuss, those conversations can continue to happen such that the dean and a school or college is able to prescribe what consistency looks like to leadership within that organization. And then division heads can work with VPs to ensure that there's consistency across. If there are overarching types of jobs that may be impacted throughout, then we're looking at that from the highest level of the president's office, the provost, to ensure that if there are student facing, if there are customer facing type positions, that we're clearly understanding that we're not going to incorporate different types of philosophies for those positions that would be shared. But if you're on the call and you've asked that question, I would say ask your manager. And if your manager doesn't know, ask the department head. The department head doesn't know, let's get the communication started. That's the very reason we want to have these types of opportunities to discuss now, rather than waiting till later in January, so that we have our plans in place. It's a great question.
Fantastic. You all as co-hosts may be also receiving some questions in your chat just because of the way that this one kind of got set up with the security roles. So I'll give you a heads up on that. Another question that we receive quite frequently involves equipment. And so if one of you might be able to just share again about remoting in, that the term has come up a lot, folks remoting into their desktop from a personal computer at home. Can you speak to the ability for folks to be able to do that or not do that on an alternate work location agreement?
Yeah, I can point people to it's the employee AWL guidelines number 5. says, can employees use personal cell phones and computer-based devices to perform university business? The leading statement repeats specifically what is in the SAP, as Andy articulated earlier, that remote work associated with the AWL program should be with a university or agency-owned computer equipment. And then the second paragraph is personal cell phones and other devices may be used for validating credentials with TMU multi-factor security systems and authorized web-based systems such as email. So if there are these abilities to log into system-owned protocols, and my IT friends on the call, please forgive me for butchering your skill set, but that's why we rely on you, right? But means whereby we can access approved avenues and circuitry into or conduit into our networks, those are okay. What we're clarifying is if someone is an alternate work location, we don't expect them to work from their phone. They should be able to have a computer or some type of device. We're not mandating that all the university goes and buys laptops and docking stations and all other types of equipment. That is not part of the mandate. Basically, just working through these details. We can continue to fine tune that answer to that question in the FAQs. Ed Pearson and his team were the ones that helped us define what that meant as far as accessing systems like the Duo system and email. But there are opportunities to do those. It's a security matter. And if we need to look at that more closely, we can. Last thing I'll mention is that in that FAQ number 5, there is a link to the regulation that gives guidance as to what may or may not be accessible from a, excuse me, personally owned device.
Fantastic. That's great. And so I think the main idea, as we've shared with our staff and as it speaks to in the FAQ and all of the regulations, is that we want to make sure that we're keeping A&M's data and information safe, and we're accessing it in a way that is safe for the data transmission, and also that it's efficient, right? So we're not trying to do all of our work off of our cell phone at the McDonald's Wi-Fi. We really do want to provide the best quality work product to our students, faculty, staff, and all of the people that we serve here on campus. And that's the general idea of it. So I think if we're keeping that in mind and working within the software systems that we have available, I think there is some latitude within that. But if you have specific questions, please speak with your IT folks on campus. I'm sure they can give you guidance and look to those regulations that may give further clarification and guidance. So really appreciate that, Damon. I know that's a question that we've received quite frequently. Let's see, other questions that are coming in. I think just to go back and clarify one other question that came up in regards to what is alternate work location. Someone asked for clarification. I think this is fairly straightforward, but if you're requesting 1 day a week working from home, that is an alternate work location if it's a recurrent request. That is a follow-up question that we had received. Laura, have you received any follow-up questions in your chat about the technical process of requesting AWL through Workday?
I don't see anything Workday specific.
Andy, anything else in yours that you want to highlight or address?
I think we covered everything. I got a lot of specific questions come in directly to me,
Yes.
but a lot of them were reoccurrent, and I think we covered all the ones I received.
Fantastic. We've continued to receive a good number of requests through our email. So I just want to, as we begin to wrap up the discussion for today, I just want to encourage you to please write to us. Your university staff council representatives want to advocate for you. We want to help you and help the university make this the best place to live and work. We want to provide answers. So if you are confused about something or need clarification or need connected to a resource, you can always email us at staff staff.tmu.edu, and we will be happy to get back with you as soon as we can. I will tell you that there will be a recording of this presentation. Sorry, lost my word. Be a recording of this presentation, and it will be available on our website, staff.tmu.edu. By the end of the week, we're going to try to have that up for you. And that way, if you missed part of the presentation, or you have a coworker that you want to share it with, something like that, that you can do that as well. And then if you do have additional questions, please email those to us. We are going to provide a list of all of the questions that were asked in the chat, as well as all of the questions that were emailed in or sent in with your registration. And we'll conglomerate those onto a single document that will be provided on our website along with that video. And if you ask a specific question to us, we will email you specifically back with the answer to your question as well. Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, I did have one other one, and it's kind of it'd be a clarifying point regarding reimbursement for travel. AWLs is, as we stated many times, is just an extension of the official duty work location. Your official duty location is Texas A&M University. So when you are working in Alter, you are not changing that duty location. We do not reimburse from travel to and from your residence to the work location. So by definition, AWL is just not changing your official duty location. That's why we can't, even if we wanted to, the department wants to approve it, the travel, because you're working in a different state or whatever, that it will never get through the budget people, because we do not reimburse for travel to and from your residence to the workplace. Travel rules will not allow it.
Thank you. Awesome. Damon, do you have some closing thoughts and comments?
Yeah, I want us to continue to incorporate our responses to these questions. We appreciate the participation. We are grateful that we finally have a stable environment whereby we can then incorporate an AWL philosophy that is flexible, that is conducive to us in trusting the fact that people can be productive, that it does address recruitment, it does address retention issues. It is a positive that we're able to incorporate this as another tool within our box to be the employer of choice, right? To be in a position to attract and retain and develop our best and brightest. So we are appreciative of the patience of our whole university landscape and our teams. Thanks to USC for helping host this, our team at HROE for their continued efforts to be the best at what they do. So with that, I just want to say thanks to everyone and Happy New Year. And if there's specific questions or things that we need, keep using the avenue through USC, and we will document those on the FAQ page here on our web-based guide. So thank you so much. Great work.
Fantastic. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon, and reach out to us if we can help you.
All right. Thank you.